Hello and welcome to another edition of Dungeons and Social Distancing with Nerdarchy.
Today we tackle another GM 911. Is this player cheating at D&D? Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and as usual I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Don't get cheated out of your next D&D video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And never miss another Nerdarchy GM 911 by tuning to that notification bell.
Well, before we jump into our content, quick disclaimer. As you can see, we're doing our Dungeons and Social Distancing. We're trying to follow best practices, keep everyone safe. Hopefully you're doing the same. So our content looks a little bit different than it normally does. We are filming remotely instead of in the same room the way we normally do, the way you're used to. We'll get back to that as soon as it is possible and it's safe to do. So with that, we're going to jump into our video. We have a GM 911 that is sponsored by D&D Beyond, a great digital tool which is more useful than ever in these current days and climate with social distancing and us gaming online all the time. But it's such a great tool. It's a database of all things official Dungeons and Dragons. You can do so much over there.
But that's not all. There's so much other great content that's on there. The articles, the videos, they're a great resource for, building player and GM tips. But any of the content that's in the SRD is automatically free over there as well. So it's a no-risk opportunity. Go check out D&D Beyond if you haven't already. Link is going to be down in the description.
So today's GM 911 comes from Sean. Want to read that, Ted?
Absolutely. I've never planned on being a GM, but after not being able to find a game, I decided to host one on Roll20 and found a really good group and have been playing a lot of fun. They don't care that I'm not great at role-playing part. As a whole, everyone seems to be having a good time. However, being as I'm not the creative type, I rely on the complete adventures of the Wizards of the Coast put out. And one player is clearly reading each campaign as we go through it, and I'm finding it very annoying when he's constantly doing things out of character and just acting like he is getting lucky. I've called him out on it once before, and he just denied it, but it's happening too often for it to be a coincidence. Because I don't need a video, but any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Well, we're going to do a video anyway.
You don't need a video, but you're getting one.
So the adventures that Wizards puts out are really great. They're a fantastic resource for, new and veteran GMs alike. But, this is a pretty severe, situation. Where would we start, Dave?
First of all, let's just flat out, answer the question. Is this a form of cheating?
I would have to say 100% this is cheating. If you know as a player that the DM is running exactly what is written out of the books and you're reading it, you're number one spoiling a lot of the awesome surprises that Wizards puts in there, but you're taking the fun from the other players who want that discovery, who want that air of mystery and the chance of, not finding every little nook and cranny that is put in there. So it's a really foul practice to do, and I highly recommend, if you're playing a pre-written adventure, just leave the book on the shelf until the game was over, and then you could really go back and say like, oh man, look at what we missed here, look at what we skipped there, and that can be a lot of fun to really, train yourself to how to be a better player.
Yeah, this really reeks of trying to win D&D, unfortunately. So, it brings us to what can a Dungeon Master do about it? I have like two umbrellas that I would go under for this particular topic.
Number one, the easiest thing to do is literally change the adventure. And I'm not not talking about, I'm going to completely change what the major plot is, but you make small changes.
I disagree, Ted. That is not the easiest thing you could do. The easiest thing you could do is ask them to stop cheating and stop reading ahead. But that being said, a person that's already doing that probably is not going to be inclined to be like, oh, okay, I won't do that anymore. Or, it's hard to imagine that they don't understand, that a person doesn't understand that this is actually a bad practice.
Okay, I agree with that, but the DM has already called the player out and they're denying it. So that means they're pretty much not going to stop what they're doing, even if specifically asked, because clearly if you're called out and you deny it, that says that there's a problem here. And I imagine that there's been more of a conversation that we're not privy to in this particular situation.
But you're right. So the next step is, if you decide to not just kick the player out of your game, is to change the adventure, which I actually like that idea.
So the easy thing to do is, all right, if you highly suspect that a player is downright cheating, and like, okay, I go to the second bookshelf on the right and open up the third book to page 17. Okay, well, that is very specific, and if that exact passage happens to be in the book, that's not getting lucky. That's someone who is coming to the table with notes and knowing what to do. So in those situations, you can do one of two things, one being really more severe, and you just move where that treasure is. You say, okay, well, that thing that you're looking for isn't in that place. Now, you wouldn't say it that way, but it's like, okay, you go to do that thing, there's nothing there. And you wait for that player to respond, because they fully expect it. The other thing is, you can pull out your trusty DMG, and whether you're using D&D Beyond or whether you have the book and you want to turn to page 121, you can just insert traps. And this little, small little, section gives you the danger, the DC, the attack bonus, or, the character level and the degree of how dangerous it is and their damages based on level. This is a really handy tool to have for DMs who want to just put traps on the fly, because you can just describe what the effect is and the mechanics are built in right here for however, dangerous or deadly you want it to be. It's really good. Highly recommend, as a DM, you have that out. You could even copy that information, put it on, a piece of paper and clip it to your DM screen, or just have that book open to the side if you're, completely running online, like most people are having to do these days. So like those are the things. You can still put the treasure that's that's supposed to be in that location somewhere else. You've got, oh, well, you're in a library full of books. Okay, well, it's on the next shelf over or whatever have you. Let somebody else try to be the one to find it. But if you want to unload that poison dart trap or that exploding magical glyph trap, that's a great place to go ahead and throw that in. And that player might be discouraged to try and go to those specific locations.
Sepia snake sigil from the past, or maybe a shelf full of book mimics. Then once you disturb the one book, all the books attack you. You could do a lot of fun things with that, so that the players are finding unexpected things. And also, you can just switch up the rooms. Like, you could just, the contents of the rooms, you can switch, if this is room 1, you could use, the things from room 3 and just switch things that way. You make some notes in your adventure and change it up, this way. And this way, the onus is then back on the player. What are they going to do? Call you out? If they call you out, they have to admit they've been cheating. It also will make it more fun for them, whether they realize it or not. It's better if you can do it in more creative ways than necessarily punitive ways, but you might mix and match a little bit. In Ted's example of explosive runes, maybe if the runes go off, they find the treasure, but now it's been destroyed because you've triggered the trap. And because, maybe they didn't take the precautions that, would have been right to the situation, because they took the precautions that would have been used for what they already read ahead. So that's definitely a good way of doing it. There's other things you can do too, like if in a particular area they're expecting a specific monster, well, you could change it out, whether it's just a different monster from that particular adventure, or you put your own monster in there that you've homebrewed, or it looks like the same monster, but you've actually reskinned it and given it different abilities. I guess that's the opposite of reskinning, but
well, I know this DM said that he's not super creative. For the most part, anything that would be in the same range of challenge or challenge rating, it could be good to be able to swap things out. It is useful to be able to have that forewarned player surprised. And, the more that you do this kind of swapping, changing, moving rooms, moving monsters, you're going to find that this stuff becomes just that much easier for you. And, you get these little tips, these little tricks, and it's going to make you a better GM in the long run anyway. I'm not saying this player is doing you a favor, because it's not, it's clearly cheating. But by going through these steps and following these little things, it's going to give you tips to be able to handle bigger problems or other problems later on.
You're going to become a better dungeon master, whether you want to or not. I would suggest coming up with 10 to 20 random things that can be inserted anywhere. So whenever you feel like the player is doing these things, you just go to your little cheat sheet of random things, either roll or have them roll, or you just pick something that seems appropriate to the situation, and like, oh, you know what? There wasn't a pit trap in this room before, but there is now, and there's a monster in it or something, just something different. But things that you have already prepared that are just go-tos for you.
Running pre-written adventures, when you make these simple changes, you're actually turning the game, into your own, because those changes are not going to be anywhere but in your copy, that which the players got into. And an important thing to remember that as the DM, regardless, and I'm holding up the DMG, but imagine this book was one of those adventures that you're running. Regardless of what it says in here, nothing actually exists until you say it does. So that's one of those really super important lessons for new GMs to take on, because it is your game. It will always be your game, and as the dungeon master, you have that complete control to make those changes, to make what's necessary so that every player at the table is having fun. And you as a dungeon master are a player. If, one of your players is doing something that is pissing you off, so much so that you might consider not DMing anymore, that's a loss for the entire table. So you have to make sure that you can make these changes and you can do the things that's necessary so that everybody is having a great time.
I would venture to say it's a loss to the community as a whole. But here's another caveat too. We've mentioned some kind of more punitive ways of dealing with this, and because the player's a cheater, but there's also some fun and interesting things you can do by incorporating things from the characters' backstories, or things that have happened before, or things that maybe your players have mentioned that are just fun and interesting changes to the adventure. And hopefully too, like if you start doing some of these things, not just the things that are, like you're smacking their hand for being bad, but these fun things as well, maybe they'll realize they're wasting their time reading ahead and they'll just stop because there's no benefit to it anymore. That may hopefully train your player to be a better player that way. It'll train you as a GM to be a better GM and be prepared for things. And it'll also get you to start customizing these pre-written adventures a little bit. And then, why not start customizing them in a way that highlights and focuses on your players at the table too, which will make it more fun and interesting for them.
Couldn't agree more. So I asked a question. Did you miss last week's GM 911? Player wants to create a D&D Assassin's Guild?
You can check it out up here. We've been known to answer GM 911s live on our Patreon-only live chats.
That's not all our patrons get. We create 5e content for players and DMs alike every month. We do monthly giveaways, and our patrons are automatically entered in, and more.
So until next time, stay
nerdy.